If you're planning a visit or even a move to Australia, there are a few things that you need to know, because if you get these things wrong, you could end up burnt, bitten, broke, or just really, really embarrassed. And trust me, I've had to learn these things the hard way. Like the time I thought it would be a good idea to start training for a marathon in summer here. Bad decision. And one of the reasons why I absolutely love Aussie people is that they don't take any nonsense. If you're doing something really stupid here, they're not afraid to tell you. So these are the 11 things that you should never do in Australia. Let's get into it. G'day mate, welcome back. If you're new here, I'm Sam, a British actor now living in Australia. And on this channel, I take you inside Aussie life, exploring its culture, lifestyle, and everything that makes it awesome. Now I call these tips the Aussie 11 because if you get all of these things right, you're gonna have an absolutely amazing time here. This list I formed over the last year living in Australia and also speaking to Aussie relatives and friends here. So the first one is never underestimate the sun here. Wherever you're from, the sun is just on another level here, okay? And this includes winter, by the way. The UV index here is just so much higher than what you will have experienced in a lot of Europe at least. While I've been living in Australia, I see that by 8 AM, the UV is already up to 4, and that's when you really need to be wearing your SPF 50 sunscreen. They have a saying here which is slip, slop, slap, which is just a great way to remember that when you leave the house, you need to be slip, slop, slapping the sunscreen on your body. Honestly, on the days when the UV is the highest, we're talking like 13, you could get burnt in less than 10 minutes if you're not wearing any sunscreen. This includes on cloudy days. And how do I know that? Because it happened to me. My wife and I went paddleboarding with some mates here. It was a cloudy day. I thought, I don't need to wear sunscreen. We're only out for a couple of hours. I'll be fine. And I got sunburnt so badly. The next day I had a flight back to the UK and wearing the seatbelt was so painful because the sunburn was that bad. Reframe your mindset. If it's anything less than SPF 50, it's not proper sunscreen. That's what I would say to make sure that you're being skin safe. Number 2 is never swim outside the flags when you go to the beach, even if it looks calm. The lifeguards, they are professionals. They put those flags there because that's the somewhat safe area to swim. Rip currents are no joke. And if you don't know what a rip current is, you have to research how to deal with one and how to watch out for one before you even step foot in the sea here. If you've ever watched an episode of Bondi Rescue, which is about the lifeguards saving people on Bondi Beach in Sydney, then you'll see that they're always fishing out British people and they've been like, yeah, I can handle anything, I'm hard as nails, doesn't matter what's in the sea, I can take it. And then they go into the Aussie sea and they realize that it's completely different from Barcelona. The sea can be a killer. Number 3 is ignore wildlife warning signs. You might think you're as hard as nails, you might think you'll probably be fine, but the answer is you probably won't. Crocodiles, jellyfish, sharks, venomous spiders and snakes are no joke. And while, you know, in the city, you rarely see these signs, when you do, you need to pay attention to them. I live in Brisbane City, and even when I go for a run, sometimes I run past signs that say, beware of the snakes. And some of this wildlife, no joke, can hospitalize you in seconds. So trust me, you don't want to be that one tourist who thinks they're super tough and the signs don't apply to you, because you'll be that one person that it happens to. By the way, if you're enjoying this, could you do me a favor and just hit the like button? It really helps to support my channel and helps me to improve these videos. Thank you. Number 4 is jaywalk. It is illegal here, you will get stopped. And I know in the UK it's legal. I know that in other countries it's legal, but it's not here. So just don't risk it, especially if you're in a really big built up city like Adelaide, Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, because there could be cops around and you don't want to get stopped and fined. It'll just put a massive dampener on your experience here. So just try and avoid it. So even if jaywalking isn't illegal in the particular state you're in, just try to avoid it for your own safety as well. Number 5 is get your coffee from a big chain. In my opinion, the coffee is the best in the world here. So go to an independent coffee shop. I'm sure you'll make a new friend there. You'll get an incredible cup of coffee, and I know for certain the prices of coffee here are much cheaper than they are in the UK, even though the coffee here is infinitely better. And Starbucks, when they first opened up here, they actually really struggled and they failed because they realized that Aussies, they like really high quality coffee and they're not going to settle for anything less than that. There are now Starbucks dotted around the continent. Now, if you're not really used to drinking coffee and you want to blend in, then a flat white is the order that I hear most commonly in Brisbane. But if you want the Samford special, get an oat ice latte. absolutely amazing. Also guys, I was looking at my analytics the other day and I noticed that over 98% of you who regularly watch my videos aren't yet subscribed to my channel. So if you would consider hitting that subscribe button, that would mean a lot to me. Cheers. Number 6 is whinge about things to the locals. Yes, it can be expensive here, especially in the major cities. Yes, you might miss home comfort, and yes, things might be very different compared to back in your home country. But honestly, don't whinge about it to people. Aussies don't want to know. The thing is, to really get the most out of Australia, you have to accept it for what it is and embrace the culture and embrace the lifestyle. Yeah, you might get homesick sometimes, and that's when it's best to take a trip home if you can afford it. But whinging about it is only going to make your experience worse. And honestly, complaining about Aussie stuff to Aussies won't win you any points. They already understand, they know, they live here. It's not going to be endearing if you're complaining about their culture and their country. So just don't do it, make friends, be good vibes, and you'll have a much better time. Number 7 is forget about magpies in the spring. Now, if you don't already know, in spring in Australia, the magpies are different from the ones back in the UK. This is a British magpie, very cute, very cuddly. We actually have a superstition in the UK where we say good morning Mr. Magpie when you see one, and if you don't say that, it means, you know, you're going to be unlucky or have a bad day. But these are the ones in Australia. They're built different, as you can see, and in spring they will swoop you and they can actually draw blood, and it can be really painful. A lot of people think they do this because they're aggressive, and it's actually to defend their young birds. If you know a bit more about it, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And that's why you'll see a lot of cyclists with cable ties, zip ties attached to their bike helmet, which looks quite funny, admittedly, but it helps to deter the magpies. They're just built different. I love to run, and when I see a magpie approaching me in this season, I just cross the road, I just go somewhere else, I just turn around and run in a different direction, calmly, of course, as calmly as I can, because it's just not worth it. I personally have never been swooped by one, and I run 6 days a week, but I would say this comes down to me being really careful about where I go, and there's often lots of magpie swooping signs in areas to warn you where they might be. So if you see one of those signs, use your common sense and avoid that area. You'll have a much better time if you do so. Number 8 is say you prefer New Zealand to an Australian person. Imagine if someone came into your house and they were like, yeah, it's a nice place, mate, but I prefer Dan's place. You'd be like, oh, okay, thanks, I guess. It's a similar thing. So even if you do prefer New Zealand, they're two different countries, and that kind of joins onto another one. Make comparisons between Australia and New Zealand as if they're the same place. They are two completely different countries and cultures, and Aussies and Kiwis alike, they both don't like it when you start saying they're the same place or they're the same people. It just doesn't resonate, and it's not funny, it's not endearing, so just try and avoid that. Now, there's nothing wrong with expressing your appreciation and love of New Zealand. Just don't go, oh yeah, this is better in New Zealand, that's better in New Zealand, oh, I prefer it when people do this in New Zealand. They'll be like, okay mate, yeah, we've had enough of that now. So that's something to look out for. Number 9 is expect kangaroos and koalas in the city. Now, I think most people know that you're probably not going to find them in the city. I'm no zoologist, but I know that big skyscrapers and concrete everywhere isn't the best vibe if you're a kangaroo and a koala. If you want to see them, go into nature a bit more, go into the bush and make a proper trip out of it and really get immersed in the culture there. I've been in the suburbs in Brisbane on my runs, but in some like nature conservation areas, and I've seen a koala in the tree, and I've seen some wallabies, which yes, I know they're not kangaroos, but I was on a proper bike trail through a woodland with lots of nature around me, so it was a good environment for them. But you're better off going into national parks or heading into the bush safely and ideally with a guide. Also, if you're enjoying this video, you'll absolutely love my weekly newsletter. It's only a 3-minute read, and I deep dive into what it's like living in Australia as a British person and a few actionable tips to improve your life. So if that sounds good, you can subscribe with one click using the link in the description below. Number 10 is butcher Aussie slang, or even take it too seriously. Just like Brits, Aussies can have quite a dry and sarcastic sense of humour. So especially if you're from a culture that doesn't have a lot of sarcasm or dry humour, try not to get offended offended if an Aussie says something to you that doesn't quite make sense. If you think an Aussie's being rude to you, it might just be that they're being a bit sarcastic, and that's kind of the banter here. So try not to take offense to it. Also, even with my wife being Aussie and having Aussie relatives, sometimes I don't understand all of the slang, as my 11 words that confuse me as a Brit video will tell you. Now, I'm not going to do the accent, but just a few things to remember. How you going means how are you, basically, and you can be like, yeah, I'm good, thanks, how you going? Yeah, nah means no, it doesn't mean yes. And if someone calls you mate in a nice tone with a smile, it means you're their mate, it means they like you. In the same way as a British person, we use mate all the time. But if they say mate and they don't sound that impressed, it means you've probably done something to annoy them. And honestly, it would really help you to make a few friends in Australia who are Aussies, because they will have no trouble helping you out with all of these things. I'm sure much better than me. Number 11 is obsess over deadly animals. I know I was giving you warnings about watching out for them and watching out for the signs earlier, but these deadly animals that we see in the documentaries and in the movies, they're not as common as everyone makes them out to be. I know that the cliche with tourists is, I'd love to go to Australia, but the spiders though. Honestly, I hardly ever see spiders. Maybe if I was living in the bush, I might see them a lot more. But if you're in the city, you're hardly ever going to see snakes or spiders or insects. Obviously, I can't guarantee you that. You could just be totally unlucky. Now, what are some things that I forgot to put on this list? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you enjoyed this video, I know you're absolutely going to love this one, all about how I survived my first ever cyclone here in Australia. It was terrifying. And if you want to keep in touch, then hit that subscribe button. Have a bloody beautiful day, guys, and I will see you in the next video. Take care.